This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. Learn more online or subscribe at beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.
It is snowy and it is cold in Bend, Oregon today. And I'm sitting in Gary Fish's office from Dechutes Brewery, but Gary's not here. Across from me is somebody so much better and somebody so much more interesting to talk to about everything that's happening here at Dechutes Brewery these days. You're so nervous now. This is like...
You set the bar
seriously. Veronica Vega, the Director of Product Development here at Deschutes. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We're going to kick into the conversation in just a minute. But first, as the brewing industry's premier choice for glycol chilling, G&D Chillers has set the standard on quality, service, reliability, and dedication to their consumers' craft. For 25 years, G&D has led the way on innovative solutions that match their brewing customers' immediate and future needs. G&D backs every product they touch and provides service second to none. Contact G&D Chillers today for your chiller sizing needs at 1-800-555-0973 or reach out online at gdchillers.com. And this episode is also brought to you by the Craft Brewers Conference and Brew Expo America, America's largest brewing industry gathering. Join your peers in Denver, April 8th through 11th. Details at craftbrewersconference.com. I'm John Hall. I'm the senior editor of Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine. Veronica Vega is the Director of Product Development here at Deschutes, where I'm hanging out on a Friday in midwinter. And I guess this is fairly common for you guys, right? With snow and just sort of general...
Well, this season, I mean, just having the snow in the air today is making me giddy. We've kind of had a dry year in town, so the fact that snowboarding is going to happen tomorrow makes me pretty excited.
Okay. I picked a beer, though, and you have the same one in front of you, that is not necessarily conducive to this weather, as it were. Is it?
Is
well,
it?
No, I know this is the beer that you guys want to be the next big thing for the brewery. And this is, everybody's going to be confused on the radio when I say Deschutes.
Because it's the same name.
Because it's the same name, but it's spelled differently.
Especially on the radio, because you don't see that.
Yes.
But, it doesn't have a great beer name for radio because
it's the name of the brewery.
Right. But
and this is something that brewers for the longest time had to fight, right? It was, I don't necessarily want a Sam Adams, I want a Boston Lager,
Right.
Don't order a Sierra Nevada, order a Pale Ale. And now you guys are just throwing the playbook and, I'll have a Deschutes, and somebody's going to be disappointed when they get a mirror pond in front of them, although they shouldn't be.
That's true, but that's something that we've fought forever. We have been known as the Mirror Pond Brewery or the Black Butte Brewery. So
is that a bad thing?
It only is in terms of wanting our brand to be recognizable and wanting it to be available in people's minds and memorable.
Okay.
Extremely important nowadays with so much out there in the beer world. And so, now's the time where we're saying, we're going to scream, this is how you say our name, this is what our name is. And we're doing it with the beer that also is kind of not conventional to this brewery in terms of like its past portfolio.
All right, so what is the beer?
Okay, so the beer is an American Pilsner. It's 4% ABV. It's 99 calories and 4 carbs.
Interesting.
So the fact that I'm even saying all those things,
we're
going to
unpack that. We're going to unpack that because
I know.
Yeah.
And just something I thought of this morning. So I'm wearing like a very colorful Deschutes hat.
You are.
Because the packaging of this beer is super vibrant and big. And as I put this hat on this morning, I was like thinking about how sometimes anticlimactic like an actual launch feels. And we're in like the soft launch time of this beer. But when you compare it to the emotion and passion and craziness of developing and the process of developing, it's certainly anticlimactic when it in comparison to that. So it's just something that was on my mind this morning as I put my hat on. The fact that I'm wearing POS, the fact that means that we're the beer's out there, we're slowly launching it, but it's kind of fun to just reflect on the process of how we got here.
So, as the director of product development, and I want to get into your background as we go a little bit deeper into this, but Deschutes is, what are you guys, like the 10th largest craft brewer in America right now, according to the BA stats, I guess, Brewers Association. In most states, if not all, at this point, right?
28, I believe, but
okay. I mean that
30. I'm
30.
Sorry.
All right,
yes.
so that qualifies as a national brand at this point. And it's sort of an interesting thing on product development because not only do you have to compete nationally with the big players or the bigger than you, the 9 other who come before you who have huge barrelage, but here in Bend where you guys have like 40 or so breweries in the general area, you have to compete against them as well. And the taproom model has changed so much in the last just 4 or 5 years where, the larger you are by certain segments of the craft consumers, you're going to be seen as old and stodgy or, whatever.
Set in your ways.
Yeah,
maybe,
and I see you nodding your head here. So I can't imagine that being director of new product development or new beer development is an easy one because 20 years ago it would be like, hey, let's do a saison and and everybody, genius,
totally. Yeah,
let's get some barrels.
It's
my God, you're promoted. Yeah,
totally. I mean, when you think of some of the past beers, how they came about, it was a brewer saying, I think we should make this. We make it at the pub, and we kind of grow things there. That part really hasn't changed. But what we are doing now that we really haven't done in the past, and it's a total evolution of how we interact, as a brewing team, as a brewery, to bring like that broader voice of the customer to the brewers and say, this is what people are finding important, not just in their beer, but like in their life.
So it's not necessarily inside projecting out, but it's really walking into a bar that is not known for craft and looking what people are drinking and saying, well, shit, we should be making that.
Even broader than that,
okay.
Saying so if you think of even this beer, Deschutes, right?
Yeah. And let's spell it. It's D-A, I'm reading this off of your hat now. It's D-A space S-H...
O-O-T-Z exclamation point.
Oh, okay. So you guys actually use the punctuation as part of the name?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, it is.
Fair enough. Okay.
Like even on our like recipes, the exclamation point.
As a writer, I'm thrilled that you guys are including that in there as part of
absolutely.
the. Yeah. All right.
So, where was I? Where was I?
It's a broader thing.
Oh yeah, right. So if you want to go all the way back to the beginning, the conversation began on. We don't really have a 4% beer in our portfolio. All our beers start at 5%. We know there's a time and place where all of us, craft beer fanatics and all, drink a lighter alcohol beer. As brewers, it's typically, like more often than most people. So that wasn't like a big, I didn't have to convince anyone that was necessary. So we started with, okay, that's a space in our portfolio that we should fill. That's a need out there that we could provide a great beer to. So we asked the brewing team, what kind of beer do you think we should make for this? And, at the time, the session IPAs were super huge, and they were like, we don't want to make a session IPA. We want to make a pilsner, right? And they did what, I think most brewers do is think very traditionally. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to make, they wanted to use Wireman malt and use traditional hops and really model that flavor profile of a very traditional pilsner. And as we started brewing and making batches, really, I'd say Michael kind of pushed us on, how are you going to make this different than any Pilsner out there? Because there already are traditional Pilsners out there, right? And like you said, we need to make a good amount of beer in order to, to make an impact for our business.
Yeah, to
so
keep
it's
the
not
lights on in Gary's office.
Exactly. And the heat, it's very nice and warm in here.
It is really warm in here. This is really nice. His windows are very well insulated. Yeah.
So at first when you get met with that challenge, it's kind of like abrasive, a little like, what? Like, you want us to do something totally different? So, and then you accept it and it becomes really fun. So it was then.
Does it though?
Well, I mean, again, like I said, there's drama in the process.
Okay.
There's drama. So,
because the thing that I always hear about breweries, and it's not like unlike any other workplace where it is a fun industry. People generally enjoy their job, but it is still a job. And you come in and your boss gives you this directive saying like, do something that everybody else does, but do it totally different.
Right.
And he walks out of the room, and you're like, "What the fuck does that mean?"
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
And it's that double-edged sword of you're working with extremely passionate and engaged people. So you have like 30 people saying, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And we're and you almost have to remind yourself after weeks of overthinking and feeling emotional about it that you're doing this over beer, It's like
but there's also
perception, is helpful.
But there's the business side of
I should
this.
say.
Sure, but there's the business side of this as well because it does have to have something that has. This isn't like a Ben Taproom only release. This is something that you're going to serve in Philly, that you're going to serve in Virginia, you're going to serve in Roanoke, like where
exactly.
Roanoke's in Virginia. But yeah, you know what I mean. Like it's going to be the new representation of the beer and
I also get excited about the opportunity to change a perception of a style too. So once we started getting into the brewing piece of it, in the pilot brewery, so this year's our first year that we've had an entire year of pilot capacity, and it's up and running, so we could run as many trials as we need to. So we did about 14 different single hop beers in this Pilsner, and they were all like things that you wouldn't do, like put Citra in it, put Azaka, put Galaxy. And then once we started tasting the beers, that intrigue comes out like, oh, this is pretty unique to what's out there, and start reading more about just Pilsners overall and like this idea of a contemporary American Pilsner where you're bringing in something new, like American hops.
Yeah.
Then you start getting intrigued and the fire is lit up again, right? But that wasn't the end of it. Once we got to the hops we wanted to use, then we just started evaluating the recipe. And so we started with Weyermann malt, which is a beautiful malt, and any brewer will tell you that you shouldn't make a traditional lager without it.
Sure.
And we've been talking to Brice Malt for several years on if there's something that you need to be working on R&D wise, it's creating a malt like Weyermann Pilsner malt from the States, because most of us that need to, manage our costs, that don't
Sure.
self-distribute and
Yeah.
are part of,
Yeah.
that whole thing.
But the bottom line for ingredients is certainly important.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we began that conversation years ago, and so we have been testing Synergy Select malt, and so that was kind of another emotional thing of like that realization that even though we might want to use Weyermann Pilsner malt, we, because of the research we did with Brice Synergy Select, we started doing trials on can Brice Synergy Select do what we want it to do, and so. That is now our base malt for this beer.
What do you like about it?
I think it still has that like doughy character. It has the most flavor. We did malt-teas and brews of all sorts of Pilsner base malt that has the most flavor. So it's the most like it.
Yeah.
What else can you say?
Sure.
It has the spec-wise, it has the lower protein, all that sort of thing. So it performs great. But I also like the idea that it's an American malt. It's from a single source, so it's they really thought through where it's grown and developed it for that need, that low protein Pilsner malt.
I'm going to let you take a sip of that beer. By the way, you have this glass that has this wonderful nucleation point at the bottom that I'm really jealous of with mine, where it's just like cascading up in just this really wonderful way. As you refresh yourself and do that, I will quickly say that great beers are made from select ingredients. With BSG, you'll bring the world to your brew house with an unparalleled and diverse selection of ingredients from across the globe to just down the road. Their dedicated customer service team and industry experience provides you with the assistance you need in every step of the way. Let BSG be your supplier of choice for products essential to making great artisanal beverages so you can stay focused on your craft. For more information, visit them at bsgcraftbrewing.com or contact them at 1-800-374-2739. And also, PackTech delivers the highest quality and most environmentally responsible packaging handles to the craft beer industry. PackTech handles are made from 100% post-consumer recycled material and are repurposed from milk jugs and similar containers. They're easy to carry, and remove handles feature minimalistic design that perfectly complements your beverage artwork, eliminating the need for secondary packaging. Apply by hand or by their automated applicators. Their packaging solutions deliver better market presence, enhance consumer value, environmental awareness, and improve sales. PackTech handles are smart and the sustainable choice. Contact them today at 541-461-5000 and visit their website at packtech and then -opi.com. The joys of live reads on these. I hope you enjoyed the beer.
No,
they're a new sponsor, so thanks so much for coming on PackTech and giving me a lot of words to hopefully not butcher as I'm doing this. I'm not used to like the non 1-800s.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's, and you want to make sure you get the number right, and in my brain it starts to, anyway. All right. So you did hop trials with this beer.
We did hop trials. We did malt trials. I mean, all in all, probably around 20 brews in the pilot brewery for this beer. Once we got to where we wanted from a flavor standpoint, we, kind of along the way, this conversation of people caring about calories and carbs started to come. And like I said, we thought at first people only care about alcohol. So from a product development requirement, that was the first thing that was put out there. Like, okay, it needs to be 4%. When we got near the end of, okay, this is what we want from a flavor standpoint, we were asked just as an FY, just to see, let's test this for calories and see where we are. So we hit 120 calories. We were like, wow,
God,
that's so close. Like, we felt great about that, right? But the more dialogue, the more debate, the more arguing, the more we were pushed to see if we could figure out how to get it down to 99 calories, because there's more consumer learnings on people actually do care about their carb intake, their caloric intake, and in the future, that's something that we think people are going to care more and more about. So if we're close, can we get closer? And we really think that's going to nail this launch.
But is 99 just an arbitrary number because it's one less than 100?
Yeah, sure. There's some marketing there, right?
Yeah.
Of course. We, of course, just want to be sure if we set a spec, we're going to nail it. Our QA department is like, they're the police of the brewery, and they're very good at their jobs.
Sure.
So 199, yes, we are hitting that at this point, and got there pretty quickly with an enzyme that reduces the overall fermentability.
It's sort of an interesting thing, though, because when you start to have to hit specs, and I know that this is the way that beer is going right now. We've seen it with Dogfish Head and Sequench, and we're seeing it more and more with, I think, the larger breweries that are looking to keep market share and also to grow the piece of the craft pie at this point. I mean, craft beer is 13% of the overall marketplace. It's, and the bigger you are, the more you have of that, and the more you want to have, and you have to look at that other 86% and grow from there. And it's so interesting because on the other side of the spectrum, you have small breweries that are buying out their local Walmart of Hostess cupcakes and throwing them all in the mash and being
we
calories,
did it.
Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of thing. But I guess from a brewery standpoint, and do you start to worry about, or from a brewer standpoint, do you start to worry about, well, if somebody looks at Black Butte, and I had a pint of that before we started, and I don't even know what the caloric intake is on that. Do you offhand?
It's like 200, 220.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
do you start to worry then, like, because that's a wonderful beer, and that's
Right.
a world-class beer, and it's a
Right.
beer that, every beer drinker should go back to now and again, even if they're not drinking it regularly, to remember where we came from in craft and et cetera, et cetera. But if we're pushing 99 as this arbitrary number, and meanwhile there's this delicious beer 2 tap handles down that's 220.
Yeah, I think there's always going to be a place for those things. I mean, we as humans like to treat ourselves.
Yeah.
And so the flavor of a porter after, you were at the mountain and that experience of it, I mean, I don't think people are going to walk away from it. But you can't do that all the time. And I think that's what we're seeing consumers, just think about when to drink those things. So like as far as our beers, we have, even a higher caloric. I mean, we have like the Abyss. We have like these huge beers, and they all have a place and a purpose.
Yeah.
But where we didn't have this, where we weren't serving was this space that Deschutes is going to serve.
And this is taking on the larger players right now. I mean, this is Bud Light's the best-selling beer in America. Coors Light's number 2, Miller's 3. Corona,
yeah, and that's
Bud,
such an interesting story for the brewery too, because like when Gary opened the restaurant, that's what people told him. They said, why are you making Black Butte Porter? Make something like Coors Light and Bud Light, because that's what people want. That's what people are selling. And at that point, we needed to plant our flag somewhere and do something counter to what was out in the market.
Yeah.
Now we're almost like coming full circle on saying we've kind of proven that we can make all these beautiful beer styles. We've planted our flag, and now we're going to prove out that we can make beautiful, full, like flavored, all malt light beers as well. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of exciting. You think about it, like, okay, like while Bud and Coors are fighting over corn syrup and rice, like we can say we're making an all-American malt, pilsner.
And that's exciting too, right?
Yeah.
And what was sort of interesting when you're talking about it's Breeze who's doing your malt.
Yep.
That you guys actually have the power to call them and be like, hey, give us something like this, and then
Right.
of course they do it for you because you're
yeah,
Deschutes.
and I can't say we're the only ones. I
No.
mean, that's a cool thing about Breeze is, man, after a visit there, they truly are. They have a great R&D department, and they are a great specialty malt company, and that's their that's what they're known for.
Yeah.
So they provide a lot of our specialty malts.
Did you say what hops are in this beer?
No, we ended up with a blend of lemon drop and Azaka.
Interesting.
Right.
Why?
By design.
Okay. Well, I can't imagine that after everything that you just told me, it was just like, screw it. We got some extra bags
right.
of those. Like, just dump those in and send it out. Yeah.
Yeah. The lemon drop brought in kind of a nice crisp citrus character, which I think with the experience that you want as a drinker for this beer, crisp is kind of those attributes that you want.
Yeah.
Azaka was interesting because just that brush of tropical was that unique note. To not have it be traditionally spicy or all those things, to have like a little citrus and a brush of tropical is something we felt that wasn't out there.
Okay. How does this play in, like, overall then? Because you've obviously, the recipe is solid, and it is enjoyable, and it is, one of these beers that I think you can go, and at 4%, for me, that's what I look for, not necessarily caloric intake, as anybody who knows me, but, the ABV level certainly, plays a role into this. But you have to have that hop characteristic to it, right? You can't just do, a traditional pills anymore. Like any American brewer has to have a firm thumbprint on a beer that goes out, because that's what consumers expect. But then there also has to be, I'm guessing, if I'm wrong, tell me please, because there also has to be enough of a light touch where, my dad could drink this, or the 86% of beer drinkers. And
I mean, it's funny when we talk about the customer for this beer that we're thinking of, we know that they're loyalists like your dad that probably aren't going to change.
He's not loyal.
He's not loyal?
No,
okay. We could change his mind.
That's fine.
Well, okay.
He doesn't listen to this.
Say my Coors Light drinking neighbor.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He's so loyal to Coors Light. I could get him to drink this beer, and he's like, I can't believe Deschutes made this beer. But I'm probably not going to get him to swap out his purchases of Coors Light on a regular basis.
Right. Well, not only for flavor, but price point as well. But,
true.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, I'm swapping this out for the.
Did you stop drinking Coors Light after you made this? Is that what you're saying?
Coors Light is only in my fridge for the neighbor, but
okay.
But typically
I keep Banquet at home. I think it's a fine beer.
I mean, you just can't drink
corn
big
syrup
beers
be
all day.
damned.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have to think about that, right? Where you have to have the deft touch where the hopheads come in and they're like, oh yeah, I'll have another one of these. But then somebody who is still adverse to hop, which is more than the majority of Americans.
Totally. Totally. So going back to development process. So another thing that we totally argued and debated was just the name and the marketing. How, what are we going to do to this beer? And I mean, God bless our marketing department for dealing with all of us passionate, opinionated people, telling them this is what it should look like. This is what it should be called. I mean, I couldn't sleep one night and put together a poster board pitch of pictures and all this thing and a manifesto.
You did a vision board of this?
Yes, I did a vision board.
Awesome.
It's ridiculous.
That's awesome.
And they're very open to hearing the idea. And for a while, this in my head fit the concept of coldies, bringing over a pack of coldies for your friend, because
I have no idea what that word
coldies
means.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm from the East Coast.
That is why. No, okay. I'm joking. It's just I don't know. It's kind of it might be a West Coast thing. It's part of at least our lingo of saying, okay, bring over some coldies and we'll, unpack your house or whatever it is that you would do during the day. Something it's mostly for daytime planning, your adventure. Let's do it over a pack of coldies or something.
So it's day drinking.
Day drinking, totally.
Okay.
And just your very confused look right here,
I
felt like
that's
for a while
I
was having to convince people no, this is a thing. People will get behind it, Obviously, it wasn't. But when I guess my whole point is that time and place of bringing over coldies, that bringing over a light beer, either while you're doing stuff during the day, just hanging with your friends. That was kind of the feeling, the experience that we wanted with this beer, and we all do it. So why not put our stamp on it?
But what's interesting though is your stamp on this on this beer, and I guess it's the royal we at this point, is this doesn't look like a Deschutes beer.
Yes,
packaging
right,
wise.
Exactly.
And that to me also kind of threw me off as well. Mm-hmm. And it's the larger you are, the more regimented I think you have to be in the way that your beer looks. Mm-hmm. Because when you spot something on the shelves, you have that 0.4 seconds to decide. Yep. And so Sierra Nevada can never change the green of pale ale because everybody knows that's what that is. But you've had these the labels have always been these sort of wonderful picturesque views of a river or mountains or fields or whatever. This is a tropical print that looks Hawaiian, that's not Hawaiian.
I know. So so again, all of our passion at first was, a lot of the brewers were saying, this needs to be white background, super simple.
I'm pretty sure there's another brewery in Bend that does that.
Well, not just that, but Firestone Walker's Lager looked like that. Yeah. So a lot of some of the new entries to this space look like that.
Yeah.
And so, us that aren't in marketing, it's easy for us to think that's what it should be, But it first started with Deschutes, the story
How long
behind
have you
the
guys
name.
had that name?
Well, it's not really okay. It came from our Hawaiian market. One of our market managers was with a friend in Hawaii, and he said something like, "Let's go get some beers later." And his friend said, "Yeah, shoots." And he asked him, what does that mean? And it just means like, yeah, that's cool. Sure, that sounds awesome, in Hawaiian Pidgin.
Yeah,
like, it's just like,
let's grab some
let's do
Colby's.
that.
Shoots. Yeah.
Shoots.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's grab
Look,
some
there it
Colby's.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. You see how you brought it around? Yes. That is
I pay
awesome.
attention. Nobody thinks I pay attention, but I'm paying attention. Yeah.
That's perfect. And so for the Hawaii market, we started making T-shirts and hats that said Deschutes because, again, people can't pronounce
Sure.
our names.
Right.
Like it came organically. That story came from someone who lived there, and so we made tons of T-shirts just for that market. And so people over here, like I asked someone, like I want one of those hats. Like that sounds, it looks great. I want that paddleboarding hat with Deschutes over it. So
Right.
And so it's kind of been, a little undercurrent of our culture. And as the name, then that's where that like tropical idea or that idea of like, well, first, there's flowers on this can, super different than anything we've done. That was another point of like convincing that like flowers don't just belong to women now. Like if you look in there's Vans sneakers that like skateboarders are wearing that have like pink flowers on it. Pink is no longer just for women. We're evolving.
It was never just for women. I've had pink dress shirts for years. Sinatra wore pink dress shirts. There's nothing. In his Christmas songs, he would sing about getting a most lovely lavender tie. Like, it's but totally. I see your point.
We're evolving, right, as a culture. But anyways, when the first couple designs came on Deschutes, I'm kind of a naturalist at heart and a botany nerd. And so, again, because I can't help myself, I put together like,
Another
vision board of our local.
Like you're just showing up at Michael's at 3 a.m. Exactly. Just grabbing markers and felt.
Went to Staples and bought like those foam boards, like walking out to my pickup truck. I'm not joking. This is. Anyways, I put together wildflowers that I love from this region, so like lupin and Indian paintbrush and all that. And I just said, maybe you could consider like making the floral print some of our local wildflowers. And I totally bid on that. And so I'm really proud that we ended up doing this because it really kind of, it speaks to Oregon, but it's kind of more to its story,
And it speaks to a larger consumer base as well because it can show off, to the 86% of this isn't necessarily what you think it is. And if those folks are conditioned to look sort of past that and get that glassy eye gaze when they see craft beer, this is something that can grab their attention.
Totally. And it wasn't until it kind of was a done deal. I mean, I saw a picture from the field of kind of a first to market end cap display, and guess what? There were 3 breweries with kind of like not similar concepts, but like lower alcohol beers, all with very plain, label design. And like out of that display, we totally stood out, and it was like, oh my God, we're brilliant! Like, look at what we did. We make it look so easy, but actually, like the process can be grueling to get to that endpoint.
But now that you're here and you're rolling it out, and this is the thing that I think most large brewers do, and even smaller brewers as well, is you now have to start thinking about the line extensions.
Yep.
Yeah,
we are.
Okay.
Yeah, it's exciting. Oh God, how much should I share? I mean, this is
why not?
Well, we think we could.
Aaron from your marketing department is freaking out right now.
Well, I mean, the obvious one. I mean, I have the whole label designed and everything, but like we've been obviously working on a dark lager version where we want to.
God bless you.
But then can you see it black and white floral print?
I guess so. I'm not all that.
I don't know. I can't help myself.
Okay.
But anyways, we also are thinking about pushing the ABV even lower. Like how low can we can we go and still create a flavorful beer? Doesn't need to be a lager, doesn't need to be a pilsner, but
You're just going to do a non-alcoholic Schwarz beer and just kill the industry. That's just, I
Nope.
mean, that's cool, but...
You don't seem excited. This might not be for you.
No, I just finished writing an article that's in this current issue that's on newsstands right now on no alcohol beers, and I'd love to see more no alcohol beers that are out there.
But what
There's
about
just something
what
about
about
a Schwarz
teeny,
beer that's just
teeny amounts of alcohol beer?
like what, like 2%? I don't know. That just that really starts to become Sex in a Canoe.
Oh, dangerous.
Yeah. You know, that's the, at that point, 2%, it's like, so David Letterman used to say that decaffeinated coffee was just useless warm brown water. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. So it's either fully embrace non-alcoholic, but 2%, what,
We're doing both.
Okay.
But I'm just saying for a line extension of Deschutes, lower things,
Sure.
lower, whether it's caloric or lower alcohol, that's what we're exploring while still maintaining flavor.
Okay. Because that's what it's all about.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned being a botany nerd. How much are you trying to bring new botanicals into beer these days? I mean, new product development, right?
It just so happens that we have a beer called Botanic Ale.
Oh, yeah?
Guess who named that one?
Okay. I'm surprised that wasn't already taken, but that's cool.
I know,
yeah.
Me too. That was lucky, but it's coming out here in about 2 months. It's going into our Just Tap
series. So what's
series.
that, like April, May?
Yes.
Okay.
And
this isn't airing until like mid-March, so that's fine.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So next month.
Yeah, that was like a passion project from years ago at the pub. I wanted to make kind of a gin and tonic inspired botanical beer. And then I handed it off to Robin. Robin is down there at the pub, and he just took it home. It was awesome. And so it's a 7% like rye pale malt beer.
Right, now you're talking.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, yeah.
So, there's that booze hit that, you get from a gin and tonic, but also these nice like combinations of juniper overlaid with, other select proprietary botanicals to use the gin lingo.
Yes.
I'll tell you all my secrets if you want, but I just think it's funny that all gins think,
Yeah, they're acting like they're just like snowflakes in this world, and it's everybody's using the same thing. It's like cucumber, my God, scandalous.
Yeah, exactly. So we're using proprietary botanicals. But I don't know. I'm really excited about how people react to it. We did some beer concoctions at the pub there, which kind of, can be sacrilegious to some folks, but God, it was a beautiful, refreshing drink to take Botanic Ale and add like a little. We had our chef make a house-made tonic with a cucumber. It was so fun. So that's one of those like I said, passion projects that you just hope that the customers also feel excited and experience what your vision of it.
You mentioned the word sacrilegious, and I find that really interesting because, again, here we are in early 2019, and craft by volume hasn't necessarily grown in the last couple of years, and it's been a game of inches at best. And there are large, passionate voices who scream on one end about, you can't mess with pale ale. And then there's the other vocal community who only really care about haze or pastry stouts. And, like, we don't want to hear about your old-fashioned stuff, old man, like that kind of thing. And so they're in these little silos that exist where sacrilege means something different to everybody these days.
Yeah.
But as a brewer in charge of innovative projects, that's gotta suck.
The person you didn't talk about there?
Who?
Is the customer. Because their voice should be the loudest.
But these people are customers, though. But they're the loud.
You're
but they're the
talking about
loudest
mega
yelling.
beer nerd customers.
Okay.
Because I think, when you think of like the broader base,
Yeah.
they don't have these passionate opinions about whether beer should be hazy.
Because they don't give a shit.
They don't give a
right?
shit. They
Yeah.
just want something delicious. They want something new. They want something intriguing. They're interested in what you can come up with next. They want to see that authenticity, they don't give a shit about that. So it's like, if you just listen to the beer nerds arguing to each other, you're not listening to the right crowd, I don't think.
So how important is it for you to get outside of the brewery then to actually listen to people? Because I cover this industry, you're working in this industry. We're all sort of in this bubble,
Yep.
as it were. And I find it, very helpful. I've said this in books and articles and other things. I find it very helpful to go to non-craft beer places and drink non-craft beer and just hang out with people.
Yep. Absolutely.
How much does that play into this new or this role that you're in right now?
Yeah. I'm so excited about that potential for the future because, as heartbreaking as it was to move away from the brewing department, like day to day, like that co-management of them and the process and all that, it is an echo chamber.
Yeah.
And like you said, going to places that you hear more about, like just broader customer needs and desires for the future as opposed to just beer, I think will be hugely enlightening and exciting. I mean, because it's going to push us to do things that we wouldn't do otherwise.
God, there's like so much more that I want to talk to you about. I want to talk about mentorship before we go. You're a mentor to a lot of young brewers who are trying to get into the industry or who are trying to go and rise up in the industry. What's the question that you get most often from them versus the piece of advice that you'd love to give before they even ask?
Yeah. People always ask about what kind of schooling do I need? What kind of preparation should I be doing? If I'm in high school, what classes should I be taking? Stuff like that. And the advice I typically give is that brewing is a passion career, and no amount of schooling will instill that. And it's also a career where huge work ethic is so important. And so getting real life brewery experience in terms of internships and getting your hands dirty is the best thing you could do for yourself, I think, because then it will really enlighten you on, is this what I actually want to do? Yeah. Because the day-to-day is different than the perception of what it might be. It's a lot sexier in theory. So getting like I said, getting dirty and then seeing if that fire is lit by taking that real life experience, because that's going to fuel the future schooling and all of that you can get down the road. And especially if you find yourself with a solid employer that can help with education, I would say practical experience and your ability to work under pressure, your ability to work in a fast-paced environment with a lot of different personalities, and your ability to prove that out with that experience is going to be far better than taking the right courses.
I love it. In a minute, I'm going to ask you what your hope for beer is. But first, I'm going to say thank you to our sponsors for this episode, who allowed me to sit in Gary Fish's office this afternoon here in Bend. G&D Chiller is the brewing industry's premier choice for glycol chilling. You should join your peers April 8th through 11th in Denver for the Craft Brewers Conference and Brew Expo America. You can bring the world to your brew house with select ingredients from BSG, and PackTech handles are easy to carry and remove, featuring a minimalistic design. Veronica Vega of Dechutes Brewing Company. What's your hope for beer?
That's such a, I've been, just as you gave me the time to think about it, it's such a big question.
I know. That's why
I can't help but...
We got nothing but time at this point. I've read all the sponsor stuff at this point. We could go for another 45 minutes. It doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah. I mean, I have personal hopes for the brewery that speak to that broader question that you're asking. And I think it's where we are, time and place as a business. I've been thinking so much about what it means to be a local business, and the power it brings to a community. And so for the brewery, I hope that we don't lose that identity as a community business, because just by our size, I think people are quick to put us in like corporate or that sort of place, which is so silly. And by doing so, they might become jaded with the fact that, oh no, Mirror Pond's going to always be there because they're so big. And truly it won't, because we need people to reach for the pack. If Mirror Pond was important beer to you and you want it to stick around, you do actually have to buy it. And I'm not saying that, we're going to push our, especially older brands, down people's throats. We need to be listening to the customer and giving them what they are, listening to what they want for the future. But at the same time, we also need to communicate kind of that relationship. Like if people value businesses that bring growth to communities, if they value businesses that give good benefits to their 500 employees, I think of our business as 500 families. All of us do. Yeah. And in these times where, we can't trust government to be creating these good things for communities, we have to trust business. And so if people value that, then, there's that relationship.
It's so interesting because I hear you. I thought that was a great answer. It was a great answer. Just, it's, Aaron is worried over in the corner there. But what's interesting is this sort of like evolution, though, and not necessarily keep saying like, oh, you have to drink Mirror Pond over and over again. And what I was struck with being down in your tap room before I came up to talk to you here in Gary's very well appointed office that he apparently doesn't use anymore, is that, Fresh Squeezed went to Fresh Haze. Mm-hmm. And so the flagship IPA or the IPA that you guys are known for was one thing for a while, and then now it's another thing. And there's both that are out there.
We're going to tack on more, and
Fresh Brute, Fresh Brute on its way?
No, okay. A Brute, but not Fresh Brute.
Fresh Cascadian Dark, right? Isn't that what we call it here?
Oh, right,
Is it black IPA?
Yeah. No, we're doing Lil Squeezy.
Lil Squeezy.
Yep.
That's actually kind of a fun name. Awesome. It's kind of a fun name. What is it?
So it's so as a counter to Mirror Pond, which is a very classic kind of more English style pale ale. Yeah. It's a modern American pale ale with big hop character, but it's 5% alcohol, and it's also gluten reduced.
Citra Mosaic?
No, not Citra Mosaic. There's some El Dorado in there. Yeah.
Okay.
Not everything is going to be
Little Squeezy.
Little Squeezy.
All right.
To a store near you. But, we're also doing like really small batch stuff too. We're not doing just these big beers, but.
Because you have to, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the thing, right? When you're here in Bend, and this is going back 50 minutes now, but you can't just worry about what's happening nationally with trends, but you have to think about the small tap rooms that are, literally right down the street from you.
Yep, exactly. So while we put a good amount of focus on these large retail releases, getting back to my hope for beer, right?
Yeah.
My hope is that people also realize and value that we have these really great small batch releases that especially people locally can benefit from.
Cool. Thank you so much for commandeering your boss's office for the last little bit.
It's right next door.
And I'm just going to beat that to death because, Gary's never going to listen to this and I don't care. Thank you so much for taking the time. I wish we had like a double episode. So I'm going to ask right now, will you come back on the show?
Absolutely.
All right, perfect. Yeah. And we'll get into all the other things that I wanted to talk about. If you have questions for the next time that Veronica is on the show that you'd like me to ask, you can reach out to me at John Holl, it's JOHNHOLL at beerandbrewing.com, or you can join the conversation on Twitter at John_Holl. You should also go to beerandbrewing.com. There you can subscribe to the magazine. Please, please, please subscribe to the magazine as you're familiar of hearing me say, because in there you can read all about how to be a better home brewer, what's happening in this craft beer world right now, profiles of brewers, and just really interesting beer reviews and everything else that's happening in beer right now. That's beerandbrewing.com. Help support good journalism, please. And we'll be back next week with an all-new episode. But again, one more time, thank you so much. This was a really fun conversation. We don't often talk about just like one particular beer for all of this, but and the journalist in me is like, no, this is one-dimensional, but it's really not. And so thank you for letting us know what goes into launching a new beer.
Backstory.
And if folks have a chance to go and try the beer, let us know what you think.
Please let us know.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Craft Beer and Brewing Magazine for those that love to make and drink great beer. Learn more online or subscribe at beerandbrewing.com or find us on social media at Craft Beer Brew.